Where the fuck are they? Hey, it's Skinny CP. Hey man, where the fuck are you? You're close? He's close. Oh my God, dude, he's been out so fucking long. Thought we were about to die out here. All right, so you crossed the bridge? Yeah, you took a left at the sign, right? You crossed the bridge? All right, good. You just crossed the river? You just crossed the river. Wait, what river? Hey man, there's no river. You're still at your house, aren't you? You never left to come get us, did you? This is all because of my ranking of the Friday the 13th remake, isn't it? Yeah. Well, have a nice marathon, bitch! Welcome back, everybody, to the Breaking Bad review series. It is Breaking Bad all week this week on the Cody Leach channel, leading up to the release of El Camino. I already dropped my review for season 1 yesterday, so you can check that out now. And the rest of this week will be each individual season up to Friday when I will be reviewing El Camino. And God, I'm so excited for that. So, if you missed my intro for season 1, Breaking Bad is my favorite show of all time. So as much as I would like to say that this is a review, this is really just going to be a giant celebration of this show. There are elements here and there that I will talk about, things that maybe I don't think are 100% as good as they could be, or things that bug me in this season that mostly just have to do with character decisions or character motivations, but for the most part, these are all 5 out of 5 seasons for me. So know that going in. If you hate the show, you don't want to hear anybody talk about how great it is, this is not the review for you. So, Breaking Bad Season 2. This is the first full-on season of Breaking Bad. Season 1 was 7 episodes. This one is 13, I believe. So this is where Season 2 becomes kind of the direction the show takes for the rest of the remainder of the episodes. And while still not quite being as dark and serious as it gets later on, it just keeps building and building. But season 2 is really where this show finds its footing as far as the tone and the direction and the level of evil it wants to put into the lives of Walter White and Jesse. So you got Tuco, you have the aftermath of what happened in season 1 where they're full on in bed with Tuco now as their distributor. He murders somebody right in front of them for basically nothing and leaves them quaking in their boots that, like, look, this guy could just go nuts and kill us at any moment. And that's the moment that you start season 2, is that just moment of panic. But before that even starts, this season really has a great element of foreshadowing, which is an element that this show carries on after season 2. It's one of the best elements of Vince Gilligan's storytelling, is there's so much foreshadowing. But season 2 has these openings in 4 episodes of this season that show this black and white aftermath of something going wrong, and you don't quite know what it is. You get it in the pilot of 737, you get it in Down, you get it in Over, and then you get it in the finale ABQ. And you put those titles together, 737 Down, Over, ABQ, and over the entire season where it kind of paints it almost like there was some kind of a meth explosion or maybe some kind of a gunfight. You don't really know exactly for the first couple of cold opens, and then eventually you understand that there's some kind of a plane crash that has happened, and we'll get into why. But just a great amount of foreshadowing with these black and white opens for 4 episodes of this season, letting you know that this season is heading to something very bad. You get into this season story-wise, you start off and they are very in a panic mode regarding Tuco, going back to that really the last time that we see this element of storytelling until season 5, where Walt once again has this scientific solution, this chemistry solution to their problem, and he produces this poison ricin from these castor beans. And that's something that also will be called back in later seasons of the show. It's a very important element that not a whole lot of it didn't really become pop culture ricin until Breaking Bad, but nonetheless, they're trying to get rid of this Tuco problem. You get introduced to Hector Salamanca, where eventually Tuco kidnaps Walt and Jesse, brings them to the desert saying that, hey, we're gonna go to Mexico, we're just gonna cook meth down there. and you know it's going to end up in some kind of an explosion, and they come this close to getting caught by Hank. Tuco, great character, great utilization of him in the first couple of episodes. Walt and Jesse, they're full on being like faced head on with the dangers of this business and how their own mortality will be tested in this business. Like Walt, not so much as Jesse. Jesse panics a lot more than Walt because Walt's facing mortality every single day with his cancer diagnosis. But when you got Tuco waving around this M16 and has that gigantic fucking Rambo blade, they know that they're in some serious shit. Things pop off, Tuco gets shot, Hank shows up at the worst and best possible moment, takes out Tuco, has this big effect on Hank this season as well, which I'll probably start to just talk more individual characters so we have a little bit of a flow here, so I'll get back into Hank. But Walt this season predominantly is just him and Jesse really facing this business on their own, trying to do it all themselves. Okay, we don't have Tuco anymore, so we got to be Tuco, which is what Jesse says. We have to be the distributor. We got to be the ones that everybody is afraid of. They have to work for us. And this is the time when Jesse starts to really kind of flex his muscle a bit about, look, you know the chemistry shit, but I know this business, and every decision you have made has almost gotten us killed. So you can shut the fuck up and do what I say from now on, or you can do this by yourself.
You are just a drug addict. You are a pathetic junkie, too stupid to understand and follow simple rudimentary instructions, too stupid to
And it's this great moment where that's the first time when Jesse and Walt really kind of come to blows about who knows what in this business. And they go and they start doing it Jesse's way. You get introduced to Badger and Skinny Pete, and you get introduced to Combo and just great characters, especially Skinny Pete and Badger, who continue on through this series and are going to be in El Camino, which I'm very glad to see them back for that. But great side characters that kind of flesh out the crew that you see Aaron Paul and you see Jesse hanging out with, and just another color and shade to that guy's life of the people he decides to surround himself with. But you get Jesse and Walt, they're starting to distribute themselves. They're starting to get into all of the problems that you run into without having a distributor, where they almost get caught, or one of their dealers gets killed, or one of their dealers gets nabbed by the police. You get the introduction of Bob Odenkirk as Saul Goodman, which, pure brilliance. I mean, there's a reason why that guy has his own spinoff, Better Call Saul, which I'm not going to be reviewing. I know a lot of people are going to ask me that. I'm just going to be reviewing Breaking Bad this week. But Saul Goodman and Bob Odenkirk's performance as him is just so off kilter with his humor that it's awesome. Like, every little quip and every little sarcastic comment that he makes just makes you gut laugh. And he's a great character because he's slimy and he's sleazy enough to get the upper hand on Walt and Jesse as far as like the blackmail. Like, look, it was easy to find you. I know you're a teacher now, so you better include me in this. But at the same time, he's so like removed from the badass things that Walt and Jesse have to face all the time that he's really not that much of a muscle. And then by solving one problem and getting, Badger out of police custody, now they have Saul Goodman that they have to deal with. They have to pay him, and he knows the true identity of Walt. So again, just kind of continuing that theme of one step forward, two steps back, to where they solve one problem and create a new one. And this is also the season when Walt truly, his ego starts to rise a lot.
Stay out of my territory.
To where things start going good and he just feels like they're untouchable. As soon as they get out of one situation, he feels like they're that much more untouchable. And it takes them to some very dangerous places in this season, to the point where Combo ends up getting killed and they end up having to get into bed with Gus. And we'll get into Gus. Jesse, This season takes him to his highest highs and his lowest lows almost over and over again. The season starts and he starts just slowly losing everything from the aftermath of season 1 to the point where he's like homeless, to the point where he's, you know, covered in shit in the blue water from a fucking porta potty, and then rises back up and gets his own place, meets Jane, played by Kristen Ritter, who I love to death. And he gets to this point where Meth business is going good, relationship with Walt's going good, my relationship with Jane's going good, I'm the man, everybody's like, they pass me on the street, hey, Jesse Pinkman, you're the man, bro. And then quickly descends back into shit whenever the whole situation of drug abuse comes in, and he gets Jane back into heroin, and he tries heroin for the first time, and they just become full-on junkies and turn on Walt at one point where they want to blackmail him for Jesse's part of the money, and eventually gets him to a place at the end of this season where he's basically living with a bunch of drug addicts, homeless, just strung out on a mattress. I mean, this is some of the darkest places that you'll see this character go this season, and it really showed the acting ability of Aaron Paul, to where, you know, the first season he was definitely good, he was definitely funny, and you got to see some emotion out of the guy, but season 2, you really get to see his range, where he gets to these desperate situations and these desperate points of his life, and just the emotion that Aaron Paul can bring to this character, especially in the finale, whenever after Jane's death and he's just strung out on this mattress and Walt's trying to pick him up, come on son, which kind of that father-son relationship that really starts to bud this season, and Jesse just breaks down, and, you know, I killed her, I'm nothing, and just it's great. And that was the moment where I was like, wow, that guy can act too, and there's no question why he won Emmys right alongside Bryan Cranston going forward for pretty much the rest of this series.
I killed her. What? I killed her, and it was me. I got her back up. No, Jesse, look at me. Look at me. You didn't kill anybody.
Now, I mentioned Gus. Let's talk about the characters aside from Saul Goodman that get introduced to us in this season. It's basically Gus and Mike. Mike gets like one scene, I think, pretty much in this season where he comes in to clean up after Jane's death, and that's just a great introduction to that character, because even if we never saw Mike again, there's something about that guy. There's something about that character. There's something about the cool, calm, calculated performance that Jonathan Banks brings to Mike, that just that one scene where he comes in like Winston Wolfe as like the cleaner and cleans up the situation and schools Jesse on what you're gonna say and smacks him at one point. You say this, you say nothing else. You understand? Repeat it to me. There's something so cool about that character that even just that little nugget of an introduction you get in this, that would have been iconic enough. But thank God we get more from this character, which I will get into in further seasons, because Mike is competition for maybe my favorite character of the show. He's that good. You also get the introduction of Gus, who is a huge piece of the puzzle and a huge piece of Breaking Bad and the story and where things go from here on out. And again, just kind of a small introduction. They get this deal that's cooked up by Saul Goodman to where there's this guy, he's been doing it for decades, he's just like you, Walt, he hides in plain sight, he's never been caught, he does everything business-wise, he's smart as fuck, he needs to be your distributor. And they get to this restaurant, Los Pollos Hermanos, where they try to find this guy. They're supposed to have this meeting, and he won't meet with them because of Jesse, but Walt is keen enough to pick up that Gus is probably the guy they are supposed to meet. And then I love the change in Giancarlo Esposito's voice whenever he transfers from, you know, hiding in plain sight Gus to Gus. Like, may I help you with your meal, sir? You know, can I direct you to our website? And he sits down and, I don't think we're alike at all, Walter. And there's something about the drop in tone in his voice that just like, fuck, this guy's got something brewing underneath. And even just enough for that introduction of him, they're like, this could be the greatest move you've ever made getting in bed with this guy, or it could go horribly wrong. And those of you who've seen the series know that things go horribly wrong. Getting back to Hank. Hank goes on an interesting journey in this season, because this is where you really start to see that he's a badass, but also just has very human reactions to what's going on. Like, he has a little bit of PTSD reaction to the whole shootout with Tuco, where, you know, he's hyperventilating in the elevator on the way up to his office because he's so like shook by the whole thing, and then bing, ding, the doors open up and he's like, hey, I'm home, baby, what's up? Yeah. And they give him the grill and a little thing, and he can't even be around that. He throws it in the river. And then you have the whole section of the show where he goes off for 1 or 2 episodes to Mexico to help them out with, dealing directly with the cartel. And he's kind of the outsider. His bubbly personality doesn't quite fit in with all of the people who deem themselves badasses. Then he ends up being the only smart one. And there's the whole scene with Tortuga. You got Danny Trejo in there where he's this snitch, and they're trying to get this meet set up where they can bust people, and they look out in the distance and you just see Danny Trejo's head on this tortoise. Just awesome stuff. Bomb explodes, even more PTSD for Hank.
What's the matter, Schrader? You act like you never saw a severed human head on a tortoise before. Get away! Hey, welcome to.
All the while just putting together more pieces that lead him even closer to figuring out that Walt, or at least Jesse nonetheless, is involved with the blue meth manufacturing. So just a really great season for the character of Hank, and bringing him, getting him elevated from just the guy who might catch Walt at some point. Like, giving him his own arc, his own mortality, his own things to face, that even if you're spending time away from the focus of the show, you're totally captivated by what's going on with Dean Norris as this character. And his performance as him is just, he's one of those cop characters that you remember for the show, and you wish he would do more like that. Like, I haven't seen Dean Norris do a whole lot outside of Breaking Bad, and this guy could lead a movie. He's that good.
I don't know how to say this. The things I deal with, you and me don't have much of what you might call an experiential overlap. What if I told you we do?
Now let's talk about Skyler. And Skyler is complicated for me in a lot of this show, but season 2 especially, on this rewatch, this most recent rewatch leading up to these reviews, I had a lot of issues with how they use Skyler in this season. She's the one thing that I would say is a bit of a negative for me in this season. And it's not enough of a negative to take, this thing down a peg, or to say that it's a lesser season than any of the others, because it's not. It's still a brilliant season, and I get why they need her to be this way, but she is so uptight and hypocritical and wishy-washy, really, the entire season. Like, you understand, like, if you've been in a relationship or if you've been married, you understand where a lot of her frustration comes from, to the point where, okay, Walt, your cancer diagnosis is not an excuse anymore. There's something else going on. It could be an affair, it could be any number of things, least of which she probably thought was drug manufacturing, but she understands that something's going on. He's up to something, he's lying continuously, and she knows it. And you get where her frustration as a wife and as a mother, especially a pregnant mother, is coming from. But she's so hot and cold this season to where she goes from absolutely despising him one episode, that whole episode where she's like, I'm going out. Like, I wanted to strangle her that whole episode. Like, I've been in arguments like that. I love you, Holly, where women say something just to get under your skin, and you're just like, oh, stop saying I'm going out. But nonetheless, you get moments like that where she's just really fucking with him and saying, okay, fine. You don't respect me, I don't respect you, motherfucker. I'm going out, I'm gonna do whatever I want. You can't tell me what to do. And then the very next episode, she's cool with him. And there was no, like, moment of resolve there. Like, you have the one scene where he's like, look, sit down, we could talk about it, and there's this attempt at resolve, and she's cool with it, but then he goes to lie again, and she knows it and walks off pissed off. And there's no moments in this season where it feels like they have any kind of resolve to their issues in their marriage. But you'll have one episode where she hates him and she treats him like shit, and one episode where she's cool with him and she's trying to get his doctors and, really hung on to his diagnosis, like 4 days out. I gotta talk about that episode with the revelation that his cancer is actually in remission, and everybody's, embracing him. The tension in the marriage just escapes for an episode, and then it comes back in the next one. And it is frustrating for me when I watch it now, and I never really noticed it before, how hot and cold that relationship is the entire season, with not really any explanation for why it's hot and cold.
You're not having an affair. Congratulations.
No, you know what? Congratulations to you, Skyler. Great job. I mean, what is this? What do I have to do? I'm trying to talk to you, and you just
Okay, so talk, Walt. Shut up and say something that isn't complete bullshit. You want to know what you have to do? You have to tell me what's really going on right now. Today.
You know, we've all been in these segments of our relationships where their tensions are high and, you know, people aren't getting along and, you know, one person might be sleeping on the couch and it doesn't just shut off. It never does. It doesn't do that unless there's some kind of a talk or some kind of an action or something to resolve everything. It's not just hot one day and cold one day. It just doesn't work that way. So when you view this relationship, even though it takes place over months, it's not like you're spending every waking minute with these two people. There's no story in there that kind of makes the relationship go through those waves. Ultimately leading to the end of the season where she gets that little moment of clarity unknowingly from Walt where he asks about his second cell phone and she's like, motherfucker, and she puts it all back together, and then you get the whole last basically scene before the plane crash where she lays out every lie that he has told her for the past 2 seasons and how she's figured out that he's lying and just lays it all out for him and says, bye, I want you out, I'm done. And it leaves him in a point where it's like you've done all this for your family and you just lost your family to do all of those things. And it's a nice way to leave the character of Walt because for what we have been told so far, it doesn't quite work out that way through the end of the series, but from what we're being told so far from the character of Walt, it's all for his family, and to lose all of that at the end of the season is like, wow, you've just done all of this supposedly for your family just to lose it all. Now what are you gonna do? But ultimately with season 2, I just love the different themes and the different directions that it explores. It has a really good mix of tension and comedy. Like a little of that dark comedy does carry forward into this, but there's a lot more tense situations. Things get a lot darker than they were in season 1 and still have a lot darker to go in further seasons. I love the exploration of Walt and Jesse's relationship. You know, it's business, but it's also kind of buds into this father-son thing by the finale.
$672,000 each. Yes! Hell yeah! Hey, come on, baby! Come on! Yes! Come on! Yes!
Where he's really trying to just pull Jesse back into the light, or back into the meth business. That's the light for where he is at the end of this season. And just kind of the way that they explore how your actions impact everybody in this one. That's a big theme throughout season 2, is how your actions impact other people that maybe you didn't even realize. How Walt's actions impact Skyler. How Jesse's actions impact his friends like Combo. How Walt's decisions have impacted a lot of people by the end of the season. Like one of the most brilliant pieces of this, with not only the death of Jane, which is probably the best acting that you're gonna see out of Bryan Cranston this season, where he walks in and he's trying his best. He has this whole conversation with Jane's father unknowingly in this bar, which is a very important scene in this season that could be throwaway in a lesser show, where he sits down seemingly next to a random guy that he's never gonna see again in his life, has this talk about, you know, wanting your children to do the right thing, where Margolis is talking about his daughter Jane, he's talking about Jesse, who's really just kind of a mentor-apprentice kind of relationship, but also has this father-son thing. And he wants Jesse to do the right thing. He wants Jesse to see the error of his ways and see that Walt, in some ways, is trying to do what's best for him while also kind of fucking him over. And you have this whole exchange with these two characters that seem like their fates are completely on opposite ends and will never intertwine. And then the very next scene goes to Jesse's apartment, breaks in, sees them strung out on heroin, inadvertently kind of just causes Jane's death because he pushes her over trying to wake up Jesse. She starts to vomit. And you have this moment where this is the moment when Walt really loses his humanity for me. Like, he still has my sympathy through a lot of the rest of the seasons, but this is the moment where he chooses evil. Goes over, like, holy crap, this chick is choking, goes over and stops. And the whole scene is in Cranston's eyes. Whenever you see him and he's toying, like, if I save her, I'm saving this girl, but if I let her die, I'm saving me and I'm saving Jesse. And he just toys with it for a good 30 seconds while she's dying and the clock is ticking. It's a very tense scene where you don't know what he's gonna do. And then eventually he just kind of covers his mouth and accepts what he's about to do while she leaves this earth. And you see the tears rolling, and then he does this really subtle thing acting-wise where he leaves his hand down and he kind of takes a deep breath, and then he looks upward and just kind of exhales and accepts it. And that's almost like the full transition for me from Walter White to Heisenberg. And he is Heisenberg from that moment until the end of the series for me. And the way that fate plays out with that scene and that whole exploration of how your actions impact other people, where he lets Jane die, he chooses to save himself and to save Jesse by getting her out of the picture, and inadvertently causes the death of hundreds of people because her father is so distraught that he crashes two planes together. And it's just a very dark and twisted but brilliant way to just put a cap on that whole theme of the season of how your actions impact everybody. You saved yourself, you saved your partner, things look great, and all of those people up there just paid the price for it. I absolutely love this season. I'm not kidding when I say that I think this show is perfect from beginning to end, so I will still go through the motions of talking about my wrap up and giving it a rating, even though you know what it's gonna be, but this is the first time that this show really finds its footing for what Breaking Bad will eventually become for the following seasons, as that great mix of still a little bit of dark comedy, but a lot more tension, a lot more darkness. The exploration of the character of Walt, his relationship with Jesse, facing his own mortality. And before I move on to my final thoughts, I will say that I think 4 Days Out is my favorite episode this season. I'll probably pick my favorite episode of each season just for the hell of it, but 4 Days Out to me is one of the most comedically rich episodes of the entire series, where you have Walt and Jesse just isolated for an entire episode out trying to cook meth, and you get that awesome moment of partnership where they high-five each other like, yeah, we did it, bitch! And then moments later, you go right back to Walt and Jesse fighting like cats and dogs, where Jesse's let the fucking battery die. And you get this awesome scene.
Your imbecility being what it is, I should have known to say, Jesse, don't leave the keys in the ignition the entire 2 days!
I wanted to leave them on the counter, bitch!
All right, so we need to jump the battery somehow.
But again, this is one of those moments where you get the scientific, the chemistry solution to their problem eventually pulled out of Walt. And I love the whole way that it starts with him feeling like this is it. I've seen this scan that they've given me, that has to be the tumor. My death is soon. He starts coughing up blood. He wants to rush and get as much money as possible. I've got to squeeze every last drop out of this methylamine as I can because my death is coming soon. Just to go as far as he possibly has, to lie to his wife the most that he ever has, to face his own death outside of cancer, and then get back just to find out, nope, you're in remission and your cancer is responding incredibly well to the treatment. You have bought yourself a lot of time. You are not leaving us anytime soon. His family loves it and he's pissed about it. I was this fucking close to the end. I was almost out and now they've pulled me back in. But overall, guys, I absolutely love this season like I love all these seasons. I wasn't joking when I said I think this show is perfection, but I'm still gonna go through the typical motions of wrapping up my thoughts and giving it a rating, even though you know what it's gonna be. This season really finds its footing with the tone and the direction that they go for through the rest of this series. I love the exploration of Walt and Jesse's relationship. Jesse probably having the biggest highs and lows and the best acting that we've seen from Aaron Paul up to this point. The whole exploration of the themes of your actions impacting others, I think is very rich throughout this entire season. It comes to a very grim close. The exploration of Walt's kind of loss of control while he's kind of feeling his ego rise a little bit, and the way that him and Jesse are trying to be the man in this business that they don't know exactly what they're doing, and they get all of the ramifications of that. The introduction of the brilliant characters of Saul Goodman and Gus and Mike. God, that's so awesome. Season 2 is brilliant. Aside from a little bit of wishy-washy annoyance with Skyler, I think that this season is pretty much flawless, and I understand why they need her to be that way. I really don't think it's a flaw with the writing. I think it's just a flaw with that character that just annoys me. Every show that we have, even like Dexter, where you have this character that is doing bad things, but you still, you latch onto that character. The wife, for whatever reason, is always annoying. You see it in The Shield, you see it in Dexter, you see it in this. So for them being a good mom and a good wife, they're annoying. So that's the only thing that kind of is not as enjoyable as I would want it to be about season 2. Other than that, pure brilliance yet again from Breaking Bad.
I don't even know what to say to you. I don't even know where to begin. I feel so sorry for you, Walt.
Fuck you.
So if you want to see the continuation of the meth empire of Walter White and Jesse Pinkman and where things go with Tuco and how much more shit they can get into, season 2 is chock full of madness. So check this thing out and go out and buy it. So what do you guys think of season 2 of Breaking Bad? Do you feel like this is an improvement over season 1? What's your favorite episode? Are you annoyed by the Skyler thing too, or do you feel like she's totally justified and the show doesn't necessarily need to show us every conversation between Walt and Skyler to understand the ups and downs of their relationship? Totally fair. Let me know all your thoughts down below about season 1 and keep locked on this channel tomorrow for season 3. So be sure to hit that subscribe button so you see the rest of Breaking Bad week on the Cody Leach channel. Please like and share this video. Down in the video description below is social media links if you want to check out Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter for me. Just below that's my Teespring store, all of my merchandise, all of my logos designed by Woody Bowen. I've got 31 on 31 designs down there. I've got Autop Stream down there. Check it all out down below, please. And my Patreon page is in the video description as well, which is a great way to give back to this channel, help this channel grow, and get cool exclusive content for your eyes only if you decide to become a patron. So check all that out, guys. And as always, if you want to check out some more reviews, you can check those out by clicking right over here.